Hello friends, welcome back for another part of our walkthrough of Oxygen Not Included Spaced Out DLC. Let's get our cooler going like we were talking about from last time. First though, I'm going to talk about what's going on at the other colony, just to give us a progress update. So I'm trying to mine out as much as I possibly can when my duplicates go idle because I want all these resources. And if there is any more space that you've opened up, just fill them with solar panels because we're going to need a good amount of power on this colony as well in the next little bit. If your duplicates are still looking for something to do, you can sweep all of this material, put it into one of these automatic dispensers, drop it off, drop it into your ice biome so that you can get the resources back in your base. Just going to be doing some like general maintenance stuff because the population will dwindle on this asteroid over time. I'm not sure how low it will eventually fall, but it'll probably sit around 8 for a little while, like it is right now. But we have a lot more stuff to build here, so yeah, just kind of keep the plate spinning. Speaking of keeping plate spinning, our duplicates are getting idle. Let me clear all these alerts. Which is so fun to watch, I know. It's great. Hey, why didn't you click? Alright, so we have our area all cleaned out. I had my duplicates just run... Like, I had stuff being swept into this automatic dispenser, because this was taking a long time to get cleaned up, so just spent like a cycle or so having my duplicates sweep it up themselves. Alright, let's get rid of all the stuff that's already in here so we can get it out of our way and start building what we want to build here. So just gonna deconstruct everything really quickly. Gonna deconstruct our shipping lines, which is very riveting, I'm sure. This shipping line is going to go back and send everything through, but I'm going to disconnect it a little bit for right now because this is going to be a big area full of water that we're going to keep cool, and that's going to be used as like a material cooler. It's going to be used to, like, I want all the stuff that's down here, but yeah, like I was mentioning in the previous video, not at this temperature. This is way too hot. So I want to cool it down before I send it back, and that's what this will be for. So first thing you're going to want to do is make sure that you have a solid base that connects directly to the oil biome somewhere, because I want to run my shipping lines through tiles like this rather than like through my base before it gets there or something like that. I only want it to be, like, I want it to be hot down here, and I want it to be immediately cooled once it comes into this area. So a couple layers thick of insulated tile is going to be a good idea here. Let me get all this stuff swept out of the way too, now that we don't need this here. And I want to have this area pretty clear because my duplicates are not going to come down here very often anymore. Alright, so now that we know this is going to need to be a water area, let's start on the base of it, which is going to be the cooling area, like the Aquatuner. So this is, if you've never seen this setup before, this is a combination of Aquatuners and steam turbines to do the majority of our cooling. So in this area down here, we are going to put a little bit of water in it. We'll vacuum out all the contents, like all the gas contents, so that it's just a vacuum and water. And that will turn into steam once we start running our, as I click on the wrong thing, once we start running our Aquatuners, and that will create hot steam, which is then going to be cooled by a steam turbine. These two things are the most powerful cooling setup in the game. There's really no reason not to use it unless you really want to deprive yourself of it. So the Aquatuners, you want to make them out of steel. I'm going to make 2 of them, and I'm just going to put them there like this. This bottom chamber is going to kind of be the steam area, so I'm going to start planning out where that's going to be. And we could just kind of put it like this. The abyss light can be on the bottom here. That's totally fine. Might as well make a nice, natural-looking, cool setup here. Up here is you're going to need a couple of steam turbines, but we don't have any plastic yet. We need to start producing it, which is another reason why this area should be existing. So once we get a couple rounds of plastic, that'll be really good. And I've planned to, like, I'm just going to build this out, like, temporarily, just to plan it. So the idea is this is all going to be water. This is going to be kind of, like, unpassable now. And I want to put a plastic setup, it's like something that can produce plastic in here, just to use up that space. So if I were to deconstruct this, I can just have a ladder that runs down here, and in the rare times that my duplicates actually need to get over here to do something in that room, which should be very rare, they'll at least still have access to it. So for the plastic, I'm going to start producing it here, and I want it to be near where my water is, because that machine is going to be very hot also. And if I can just make this water pit with some walls that are made out of metal tiles. That'll just cool this area anyway and keep everything cooled down. So I'd rather do that than doing anything more complicated. So yeah, this area right here is just basically going to serve as a plastic production area. And like I mentioned with these generators at some point, they're going to produce a lot of polluted water. I don't really want that polluted water to flow down into this setup. So I'd rather have the polluted water just kind of sit here. And if we get enough of it, over 100 kilograms, we'll pump it out, drop it into this tank. The plastic setup is also going to produce a little bit of water, so we'll just have a separate setup to deal with that. So the 2 steam turbines that I want are going to take up 10 tiles. So it's going to look about like this. But I want to not fill up this thing with water that much. Like, I do want water here, but I don't want to waste a lot of it, because the more I go over, like, this is significantly more water than just like that. So I just want to start setting up a place that I expect this to sit and start filling it up with water, because it's going to take so long. I'm just going to use lead here, by the way, for these metal tiles that share this wall. And I'm going to also create a base of metal tiles as well, just so we can run pipes that are part of our cooling setup. Sorry, I realize I'm kind of all over the place with this, but there's a lot of different things to explain. So I'll try to get it together and not be so chaotic. So the floor that I'm going to do for my plastic production room is going to be all metal tiles, because I want that area to be cooled by all this cool water that we're going to have sitting here, which we'll set up here in just a second. I want my walls that border the things that are going to be hot to be made out of metal tile as well. And then when this is all filled up with cold water, it'll just naturally cool all the stuff in here too. So, our setup for cooling with these Aquatuners, we're going to need a couple of liquid reservoirs. And the way I like to build this is I obviously already have the metal tiles here on the bottom, so that's an important point. The other important point is a set of mesh tiles that's a little bit higher than you normally would. I want to keep 2 spaces here between these 2 tanks, like that, because these tanks need to have both an in and an out. So the out I want to kind of flow in the middle here. The in I want to flow underneath and above. The underneath is going to cool this part. The above is going to kind of like cool this area before heading into this one. But I also want to leave enough space to add some extra tanks here in case I want to cool other things. And one of those other things is going to be our power setup. We could put some metal tiles here to border it, I guess, now that I'm looking at this again. But I'm worried that we're not going to get enough cooling up towards the top, because this is all made out of insulated tile. I don't know. We'll see how it works. Let's try the cheaper solution and see if we can get away with it. Alright, so the setup for this, I'm going to use radiant pipe, which we have a lot of lead now. We might as well use our lead when we have it. Out of the outlets on these 2 things, I'm just going to build a couple of lines that kind of come down like this. And I want them to snake through this as much as possible, because this is going to be my cold water or cold liquid. We're actually not going to use water for this. It's going to be a little bit different. Cold liquid that's going to be sitting in these pipes, and when I want them to exchange temperature, I want it to like kind of go around the water a lot to exchange its temperature. So here's the outlet on both of them. They're both going to go into some liquid shutoffs, and you can put them kind of down towards... I don't want to put them all the way towards the bottom. I'd probably rather put them right here. We're going to need to destroy these 2 ladder tiles here. In fact, we might as well just destroy all of them. There's no reason to have them here anymore. So I'm just going to put them there like that. We will add the extra automation once they can clear out these ladders. Oh, nice. Amari's going to get himself stuck. Oh, he should still be able to get out. Never mind. Okay. Alright, once we have that, we're going to take a couple of liquid pipe thermosensors and just throw them on the tiles right before these liquid shutoffs, because I don't want any liquid to pass through these unless it is of a certain temperature. So just going to hook them up like that. From the shutoffs, you're just going to run it from this over into your room that's going to have all your steam turbines and stuff, but eventually it's going to go down into your Aquatuners. So I want to leave enough space to make sure I can get everything out. So we'll come back to piping this, because our bottom pipe needs to run up back up in here and get into this tank. So I don't want to like box ourselves in and have to redo anything. So when we're in this room that's supposed to have all of our steam, I really want to use insulated pipe when we're in here. So insulated pipe for this part. Once it exits that room, this is all eventually going to be entirely sealed off. I'm just going to go right back to radiant pipe. Just kind of pipe it up like this. And we just need a bridge to get back in there. There. Now we can run the pipe that's supposed to run into our Aquatuner because we know how much space we need to reserve for the outlet. So the inlet into the Aquatuner, again, once I get into this hot room, I'm going to switch over to insulated pipe. It'll make more sense once we have it all running. So it's just going to look something like this. We have a full loop of this now. So the loop is that it's going to exit this tank. It'll be evaluated for the right temperature. If it's too warm, it'll come through this. It'll go down into our Aquatuner, then back out through this pipe. It'll exchange all of its cold temperature-ness with these tiles and the surrounding water and stuff, and then back into the tank. So nice little loop there. We're just making 2 of them, so that's why this looks more complicated. And I really want to because we're going to have a big strain on our cooling setup. Let me see how much space we're going to need for our steam turbines. Let me see. I don't know if I'm going to have enough room. We might need to repipe this, so let's wait until we have our plastic up before we build out the rest of this. But at least we have one loop hooked up, so you know generally how it's going to look. The thing I'm concerned about is I don't know if I'm going to need to widen this a little bit more so that I don't need to take up as much space over here because the steam turbines themselves have to drain. They have water that will come out of them, but I don't want to like box them in. So, yeah, we'll get back to that. Okay, so for plastic, which is the requirement that we need before we're able to produce steam. I have not talked about plastic yet, but that is partly because there's a couple of different ways to do it. I'll talk about this. In fact, I'm trying to think of when all these are going to come out in what order, because I do film these a little bit in advance. I think I'll have talked about the plastic production methods before this comes out. So, you know from that video, if you have watched it, that I'm not the biggest fan of ranching to do things. I'd rather do things that are more automated. So, this will be the first time you're producing plastic. But if you wanted to produce a little bit earlier, you always could, by way of the Drecos, the glossy Drecos. So you could do that. But what we're going to do here instead is I want to get our refinement into a polymer press. Just going to place it on the ground here. But the thing that I'm a little bit concerned about, and the thing that I'm not 100% sure on this build, is one, if we're going to have enough cooling to keep this thing cool. I kind of want to like stick it over here in the corner. Yeah, let's do this. Okay, this should work. I'll stick it over here in the corner like that. And I'm going to put this on some more metal tiles. We'll cancel these ones really quickly. This will be a wall, so I'll just kind of like preview it here. And then when it's on this polymer press really needs petroleum to run. So I'm going to run my petroleum line from the top kind of down into here. And like we're going to do with a lot of things, you just want to hook it up to a simple signal switch so that if you ever need to turn it off for whatever reason, like maybe we have enough plastic or something like that, you just want to be able to turn it off yourself so your duplicants don't need to come down there and disable it. So yeah, that'll be that in that position. We're going to need to just hook this up to power also. And this doesn't draw a lot, but we are also going to need a lot more power like setups for these Aquatuners. Like, I don't want to have to run heavy watt wire into here. And we can't run regular wire because this takes up too much energy. So we're going to need to create a couple of setups for powering all this stuff. I don't remember how much this draws. Let me look. Only 240. Okay, cool. So we should be able to just get away with 2 transformers. So I'm going to put the transformers in this room. Just going to put them above the water line so you can kind of put them on mesh tiles here so that when these spit out their polluted water, it won't basically flood these buildings. So a couple power transformers like that. Already pre-ran our heavy watt wire down here. I prepared this one in advance. And then from here, just going to kind of hook stuff up to it. So just going to be running one transformer into a bunch of things over here. And then the second one can run down to the other one. If I'm worried about it overwatting, I don't know, overloading, I guess is the word that I'm looking for. English hard. then you can just split them up like that. So I'm just going to have some of it here. Don't want to connect them together. That's a bad idea. This looks like a mess. Maybe I'll give my duplicants a little bit of time to build this out so it makes a little bit more sense. But yeah, so the basics are that we have our power up, we have our cooling loop up. We're going to get all this stuff fleshed out a little bit more. And then I'll start worrying about filling these chambers with water. So, editing break, here we go. Hey, progress. All right, let's start producing some plastic now that we have everything pretty much ready. One more thing we do need, though, is we need a pipe for exhaust. This, along with your natural gas generators, and I'm going to put up a couple of pumps here, are all going to be pumping out carbon dioxide from the machines that produce it as a byproduct. The carbon dioxide, I guess we can just send down here and have our slicksters eat up. It's going to produce almost no oil, so it's almost not worth bothering. But people seem to like it, so I'm going to do it just for you. I'm so nice. Yay. Alright, so any carbon dioxide that comes out of here, just going to route it the same way that we did through with our oil, and just kind of have it come out like that. Actually, we might want it to be lower than this. Let's get this a little bit lower. You'll see why. Basically, this is going to get filled up with a bunch of different gases, and one of them is natural gas, which we can produce power off of. But I don't want it to get too mixed up. Like, if I know the carbon dioxide is going to sink to the bottom, I'd rather emit it at the bottom if I can. Just kind of shape this out a little bit better. So yeah, once we get to that point, we'll see our plastic machine start up. Also known as a polymer press, but like most things, I'm just going to call it the more simple way, which is the plastic machine. Kind of like your food cooking room. Alright, so I scrolled over there because I'm spoiling the next thing I'm going to be doing. Another thing we need to start doing is filling up these tanks with some liquid that we know we're going to want to use. So I'm going to use the ethanol that's sitting on the map right here. You could use this for power, but I kind of like this as a coolant for this setup because it has such a low freezing point, and it can go lower than the water that can actually sit in there. So we're not going to like freeze this into a solid block. That would not be a good idea. We're just going to make it so that it can go a little bit lower than normal, and I don't know. I just think it's fun to use this, so whatever. So just put a pipe, or a pump down here. Gonna have insulated pipe that's going to run this all the way over to our setup, which we need to wait for the game to load. There we go. And we're just going to send it straight into our two tanks here. Our two tanks are already hooked up in a way that we probably don't really want to yet, so whoops, wrong button. We're going to want to disconnect them so that they don't start sending it out in a place that we don't want to yet. So I'm just going to set it up like this, and we're just going to run the pipe into the two inlet points. So this is going to be a little bit weird because there's a bunch of stuff in the way. I guess it's not that bad. The other thing with this, and I've been debating this a lot with myself, because that's who I debate with. I mean, I debate with other people, obviously, but about issues like this that are not that important. I kind of debate with myself over whether I should be hooking this up to some kind of automation to let me know when these tanks are getting pretty full, because I tend to overfill this because I forget about it. But I don't know. It just seems like so much work to run a thing all the way over there, or like use a shutoff or something. I don't know. Let's try it just for funsies. So let's see. We only want this to be on if either one of them needs more liquid. So I'm just going to set up a shutoff here. Shutoff is just going to hook in like this. And this shutoff is going to be connected to these tanks. These tanks are just going to go up and down like that. Going to use an OR gate. Again, this could be totally needlessly complicated, but you might as well try it out live and see how you like it. And just set it up like that. So these are only going to be asking or allowing ethanol to flow in if they actually need it. So I really don't want to fill these tanks up all the way. Maybe like 60%? I don't know. Sure. There. Now, once we get everything flowing, let me prioritize this a little bit higher. So we're giving our duplicants too many things to do. Now, when this flows in, ideally this will only fill up to 60%, and I don't need to pay attention to it, which is always a resource that can be exhausted for sure. So yeah, we'll try to fill that up. I'm trying to have my duplicants rush the plastic production here so that we can continue on with the steam turbines, but we also need to make sure that we're ready to fill this up with water too. So let's set up those lines really quickly. These are going to be temporary lines just to fill this up. So I'm going to put this here. Oh, by the way, you want your thermal aquatuner sitting as low in the room as possible. Since this is not at the lowest point, I'm going to put a couple tiles here just to fill that up so that the water level sits right in line with these aquatuners. Otherwise, you're going to have problems that you probably don't want to have with this setup. So the water that I want coming in here, let's see. We have a normal water line already, and I'm just going to use that. This is why I'm saying this is going to put a lot of strain on your water system, so make sure you have a good amount of it. Okay, and then I want it to come down here. Man, this is a mess of pipes right now, but these ones, fortunately, are temporary. They won't be that bad. So let's do one here, and the other one is going to come down and plug into our system at the bottom. Since I know we're going to be getting rid of all these pipes, I'm not too worried about getting them perfect. Let's set up something to make sure we don't overfill this tank. But right now, it's going to be on a hydro sensor. For this one, it doesn't really matter how much water you get in here. I'm not that worried about it, so I'll just kind of let it be. We also need to get all of the gases out of here, so I'm going to put a gas pump in here that is made out of steel, just like this. Like a lot of things, I'm going to hook it up to a signal switch so that I can turn it on and off when it's time. Whoa, too far. And then the stuff that I want pumped out, again, this is going to be carbon dioxide, at least I'm pretty sure it will be. So, sure, why not feed it to our slicksters? Everybody likes that. Being very sarcastic. You know how I feel about slicksters if you've seen my other videos. So I'm going to stop disparaging them and move on. So yeah, just going to be using this to vacuum everything out. We can hook this up to power also. And when that comes, we need to make sure we get all of our pipes and stuff built in here first before we seal this off. So once again, editing break. Once we start getting the plastic machine, also known as a polymer press, running, we'll get that going. This is going to be a long video, and I don't really want to split this up. So you're getting a long video today. Deal with it. Aha! Okay. Plastic making machine is on its way, producing some plastic here. This will potentially overheat. I need to be careful for this first few production rounds. But also note that this is going to produce a little bit of water. So one thing that we're going to want to hook up is a pump that can keep this area kind of pumped out. It'd be nice to have the extra water here for cooling purposes, just to add a little bit more material down there. But if it does get to be too much, I don't want it to flood the machine. So just going to set up something simple like that. Same thing with the hydro sensor. And there we go. You just want to keep an eye on how much you've produced, because we only need like 400 for our steam turbines. Each one of them takes 200. So you want to turn this off until we get our cooling setup up. Otherwise, this is going to start breaking itself and causing all kinds of problems down here. If it gets too hot, it could start melting the plastic too, which is a hilarious way to undo all the work we just did. So yeah, lots more to do here though, so I'm just going to let this produce until it's time to make our steam turbines, and then I'll shut this thing down. So I'm just going to be sitting here staring at it. You don't need to watch me do that, so I'll be back. Okay, we've got our 400 kilograms of plastic. Let's turn this thing off while we build the rest of our setup. So like I was mentioning, I want to put the steam turbines here before we finish up all of our piping so that we know where everything's going to sit. Let me check to see how this is going to interact with this. Okay, I think we should be able to dodge this reasonably enough. So if we just set up our 2 steam turbines like that, this should give us enough space to at least have them all drain out of here. Just going to do something like this. Have them both drain. And we could actually... yeah, let's just use this same pipe, because this pipe is already here. We'll just have it run down into that, and instead of the bridge, I'm just going to hook them both in like that. Cancel. This looks like a mess, and that's because it is. There. So the 2 of them will just need to drain back into this, which is just going to put the water back in here at a lower temperature than normal, obviously, which is what will allow us to cool the Aquatuners. Let's finish our piping for these now that we know where everything is going to go. So once we're anywhere inside this room, we want it to be made out of the igneous rock insulated tiles. Once we leave the room, we're back to radiant pipe. And this is going to be our inlet pipe. So I actually probably want to flip this around, which we can do. Let me deconstruct this really quick. So I'm going to flip it the other way so that my inlet is on the right, because if we're looking the way our pipes go, our pipes are going to come from the outlet here into the inlet and then back out. So we need to just probably set it up that way. Kind of hop over this, and then this pipe is going to run back over the top and eventually come back into here, but we can't really get all this done until we're filled up with water. Like there's so much setup that is required for this first. But that's the basic idea for how this is going to be going once everything is hooked up and running. So yeah, once again, lots more things to do before we're able to get this started. Why do we not have power to this pump right now? I'm kind of confused. Oh, because it might not be able to reach it, actually. There we go. Okay, give my duplicants a little bit more time to flesh this out. Then we'll start hopefully finishing this up. Actually, let me prioritize this a little bit higher too, so that we can seal this room first. Start vacuuming it out and getting everything out of here that we don't want. And then we'll move forward after that. So another little break. Alright, got this all ready to be sealed up, so we're going to do that. And once we seal this up, we're just going to turn on the gas pump to vacuum out all of the air out of here, because all we want in here is water, which will eventually be steam so it can feed these steam turbines. Need to also make sure that we have everything hooked up for the water to get here, which I think we should. What's this being made out of? Oh, this is all lead, so this is going to take a minute to get here. So yeah, come on, oil pay, hurry up. Alright, all sealed up. Let's turn this on. We're going to start vacuuming. Oh, thanks. It's like 99% of the way done. There we go. Just going to vacuum all the rest of this out. We're going to get our water going, so our water's starting to flow down the pipe here. And there's not really an exact amount that you want to have down in here. It matters a lot more for volcanoes, but for something like this, it doesn't matter a ton. I would probably say like 500 or 600 kilograms per tile settling down here ought to fill this up pretty nicely. I do like having it a little bit more dense than normal. I guess there isn't really a normal for a steam room, but about 100 kilograms per tile on average after it all spreads out is really nice. And that's also a pretty good number for volcanoes too, so it's like doing it the same way every time is always comfortable if it works. So we're going to get this filled up. I'm going to also start filling this up, but I do need to finish this room before we can start filling this up entirely. So this room is pretty much done. I just need to have my duplicants get everything in here. So yeah, I think that this is going to be a longer period in between getting this stuff filled up and getting this running. So let me do this. Well, yeah, no. Let's just wait for it and wait for it to be done. So I'll be back in just a minute to get that up. As soon as we have at least some more water in here, we have the system running so that we can start shipping stuff out of here. So we'll get there. All right, I'm going to turn my polymer press back on for just a second because there's a couple things that I want to add here. One thing that I want to add is a high pressure gas vent in the same room as a steam turbine. Reason why is I want to kind of overfill this room with gases so that it exchanges its temperature better with the surrounding tiles. So the higher density of oxygen in there, the better it's going to cool off these steam turbines. So I'm just going to hook it up, pretty simple, something like that. And then I'm just going to send it in from my oxygen system. So something like this. You can really overpressurize it with basically anything. It doesn't have to be oxygen or hydrogen or something like that. That would be really efficient. If you even had a whole bunch of carbon dioxide, you could fill it with this, but carbon dioxide is not a great conductor. I just use the oxygen because we already have a line for it that's already pretty accessible and we have plenty of it to use, so yeah. Also just going to put that on a signal switch just in case I don't want to go all the way up to 20 kilograms per tile. It's nice to be able to turn it off at some point. So now that I have a decent amount of plastic, I'm going to turn this back off again until we have our cooling up and running, which we're getting kind of close. All we need now is just to get the ethanol flowing from our pool over there and get our tanks to fill up. Once our tanks fill up, I will set up the settings on this. For right now, I'm just going to set them to ridiculous numbers, just so that they don't turn on, and then I'll turn them on when it's time. But the funny thing is that this ethanol is actually already going to start out to be pretty cold. So we don't want to go below a certain temperature. That's going to freeze all this water anyway, so it might not actually turn on right away. So I guess I'm less worried about that. Let's just set these now. So I'm going to set up our liquid pipe thermosensor to only turn on if it's above 5C. The reason that this will work with a temperature this low is because ethanol can handle a lot lower freezing temperature than regular water. Negative 114C, whereas water can handle, 0C basically. And every time you send something through one of these Aquatuners, it's going to lower the temperature by 14C. So that allows us to get really up against the barrier of freezing for this water without actually crossing it. And that'll assure that it has plenty of cooling to keep all this cool, and to keep this cool, and to cool all the stuff we're going to be sending through it, because it's going to be a lot of temperature that we expose this to. Alright, like subject it to, and make it cool down. So, yeah, again, just a waiting game at this point. We need to wait for all the water to fill all this place up, and gonna prioritize this a little bit higher so we can start overpressurizing this and close this off. Also, something I forgot to mention is make sure that you hook up your steam turbines to your heavy watt wire, just because it's going to be a power producer and a pretty large one. So yeah, we're going to want to get that done too. Okay, just going to work on sealing this up. Oh, one more thing I was going to mention is there's a bunch of water here that we could use to fill this up if we really wanted to, but I kind of want to keep the Pacus happy so that they're continuing to passively produce a little bit of food and eggshells and stuff. So yeah, that's why I'm not using this water, and I'd rather use the water that I have for my other base, because this is pretty much all I have. There may be some down here in these. I'm pretty sure there's not on this map. Let me look. Yeah, I've got these marked as 1s and 3s, which means that they're not very useful. The 3s I think are volcanoes, the 1 is a carbon dioxide vent, or geyser, and 1 is a liquid sulfur geyser, which we're not going to deal with in this run. So yeah, you could use some other sources. Let me turn this off until we actually have this all closed up, which I think we're ready to now, so we'll close this up. Yeah. Oh, also turn off your pump once it all pumps it out, so that you are not pumping out steam. Definitely don't want to do that. Okay, getting closer and closer, and one thing we can actually do in the meantime while we're waiting is we can start sweeping some of this stuff up. All I'm going to do to get this shipped out is I'm just going to have my duplicants grab stuff and put it in a place to send it off. So I'm just going to do something simple. Put down some tiles like this. You probably don't even need that many, because we're only going to need a few of these automatic dispensers. Looks like I did find some gold amalgam somewhere. I don't know how I obtained that, but yeah, I'm going to build these out of gold amalgam, just so they don't overheat, because it is too hot for most materials down here. Just going to put a few of those. Then our auto sweeper, we want something that's going to increase the overheat temperature. So copper does that. So just going to set it up like this. And same thing with the conveyor loader. And then whatever we want to have shipped out, we're just going to run it through our cooling tank. So let me prioritize this so it doesn't spill water into our area that we want to seal up. But all we need to do is just send it up through this line. I'm actually going to create 2 lines because I might want to get this out a little bit faster. So here's one. I'll just kind of snake it through the water like this to make sure that it does cool off as much as we can. And yeah, once we snake it through, it's just going to come out and drop off at our normal place that we would drop things off. We could create another drop-off point if we really wanted to, just to make sure that we have constant flow and we're kind of emptying this as soon as possible. So yeah, I'm just going to use this, set it up onto its own little outlet here. And then the second one, also just going to kind of go through these tiles and snake through. Whoops, man. So yeah, something simple like this. It doesn't need to be too wild. The other thing that we need to think about when we're setting this up is how we're going to be cooling our plastic, because the plastic is going to come out pretty hot too. So I'm going to set something up to ship that out, which is just going to be really simple auto sweeper, another conveyor loader, something like that. And then the conveyor rail, we can go through a bunch of places. We can go through all this because this should be getting cooled. We can kind of loop it back and forth through our tile like that. And then we can eventually have it join up with one of these other spots. Oh, I'm gonna have to open this up so my duplicants can actually reach these bottom tiles here. So yeah, that's gonna be our method for shipping stuff. whenever we want to ship something out, I'm just going to mark these for sweep, just like we've done with everything else. Just make sure that we have cleared anything else that might be asking for swept items. So, that's pretty much it. This video is getting really long, and we're going to have to wait for a long time for these tanks to fill up, and we probably want to start doing some other things anyway while this is getting built and while we're waiting. So I don't know. I'm just going to call that good for right now, and we'll see it in full action in the next video. Just so this doesn't go on for too long, and so my duplicates aren't just idling and I'm giving them, like, pointless things to do in the meantime. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I've got. Thank you very much for watching. I'll be back with the next video here really quickly, and I'll see you soon.